My priority is making sure I have food on the table. My priority is making sure I have, those toiletries and those things that I need in my house. My priority is my bills. And then after I see about all those things, then I'm going to see about, what additional things I can spend for that Christmas period upon myself. And I have to say that when we look at the cost of living as they are, and the increases in the cost of living across the board. So we're not just talking about those inflationary pressures that we felt, some of which has subsided in certain aspects, but some of which continue to remain present. For example, food and so on, and that's what people believe, right? In addition to, there's another level of inflation, which is the actual cost of living, people's fixed costs, right? Over the Christmas period, many people would have received property tax letters in the mail, which would have said to them, this is the annual rental value of your home. The annual rental value of your home for many people in certain residential areas were between $300,000 to $400,000 a year, which I think when it works out, it could be you're paying between $10,000 to $14,000 in property tax a year as well too, around that. But what happened is these letters didn't really, inform people as to what your monthly amount is going to be paid or what your yearly amount is going to be paid in property tax. So I think a lot of people got, they got worried about when they saw these valuations.
Mr. Sharon, if I may just interject, forgive me for a moment, because it's a lot to digest, and I'm glad that you're going through all the factors really that come into play or come into context in this particular conversation. But to contrast what you're mentioning for a moment, the Minister of Finance has a totally different point of view, even the Minister of Trade and Industry. Now, I don't want to take their words out of context, but the Minister of Finance has indicated in his budget statement, I don't know if you recall, he expressed that the economy was booming. Central Bank has seen an increase, growth to the economy by roughly 3%, and the Minister of Trade has actually applauded the manufacturing sector for really propping up the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. So with all those factors coming into play, it really contradicts what you're presenting this morning. And not just yourself, by the way, what other business chambers have presented. So it's really difficult to figure out precisely what is most accurate.
No, well, then let's look at it this way. If it is that we have that level of economic growth, then let's ask the question, has it trickled down to the man and woman on the street? How has our economic growth helped the consumer and the homeowner in terms of their level of disposable income? And the answer to that is what happened or the effects of that commercial season for Christmas 2023. Where many businesses didn't see that level of prosperity. Now, if we look at the economy, we see certain things, and those same reports would also say that, whether it's the central bank report, whether it is one of the commercial banks' economic bulletins, such as Republic Bank, they will also talk about the decline of our energy sector. And when we look at the decline in our energy sector, then we have to ask ourselves, well, what does that mean? What does that mean for the most important sector in a sense for Trinidad and Tobago? Do you not think that they would also be doing cost-cutting measures? Do you not think that they would also have wage bills to pay? Because in a sense, the energy sector is one of the, if not the highest paid, has the highest paid salaries in all sectors of Trinidad and Tobago. So how are they handling that? If they are in fact in decline, which people agree to. So, so the minimum wage is coming in at this point in time. And, we're seeing, the reaction, for example, when a company comes out and says, honestly, we're not going to pay for lunch hours and so on, because that was our practice before. The fact is that, no one really pays for the lunch hour. You pay the lunch, the law mandates that lunch hours have to be paid. You have to have the lunch hours, but it's often deducted in many cases from the hours of work and so on. But they retracted their statement and decided that okay, they're going to pay it because what people have been saying and what they have been advised and so on. But already we see the response from people saying that oh, it should be paid, and what are these companies doing and all that. And the reason for that is there's a great deal of anxiety in the public. There's a great deal of anxiety in the workers and all that because they're feeling it. Now, when you ask yourself, how are people dealing with their bills? Or how are the consumers dealing with their bills? We're not talking about just minimum wage. We're talking about, this is all the way up to middle income or middle class income. The fact of the matter is not everyone is going to come out and say, I'm actually struggling a bit with my bills. But I do believe that the majority of people in Trinidad and Tobago, and I could go out on a limb and say that is about 80% of the people are quite worried about how are they going to foot the increasing cost of living, some of which have yet to hit us, right? Including the monthly electricity bills that are heading our way. And what the effects of those are going to be, again, because when the monthly electricity bill comes in and it starts to, and it is going to increase, obviously. I think you can actually see what the increase is going to be.
Mr. Sharon, I know earlier in your first response, you were mentioning the burdens that businesses are facing, and you also tie that into the burdens of the consumer. Now, in previous conversations that I've had, business heads have admitted that consumers will see an increase in prices once new electricity rates are announced and presented. In the instance of the minimum wage, though, is that burden going to be passed on to consumers as well?
Well, you see, that's an interesting question. When you look at small and medium businesses, and you look at businesses that operate in, let's say, areas of a lot of competition, or a high level of competition, and areas that are also rural and out of very highly active commercial areas, then often what is sold, that price point is based on what people can afford in the area. And that price point is set at what is the competitive price. Obviously, if you have a price point that is set that is above everybody else, or that is too high for your area, then you're not going to sell the goods off your shelves unless there's a great demand for it. So the idea is that while we can talk about inflation on one hand and raising prices and so on, there's only so much raising prices that can be had before it actually begins to affect the business and affect sales. And if sales are already poor in a sense, then how much more are you going to raise your prices? So what actually happens in that case is that the business absorbs as much as it costs as it can, passes on a marginal amount if it can, and then gradually its own costs are quite high, so what it's making is much less. Obviously, what it's making is going to be much less, and that is going to impact the sustainability. It's going to impact how many people it can employ. It's going to impact how much money it has within its own budget to replenish its stock and so on. And it's also going to affect, because most businesses as well too have their own financial obligations. So when we look at the burdens or the financial burdens upon a business, wage is not the entirety of it. Many people have overdrafts to pay. Many people are still holding are still paying those increased levels that when they took that moratorium during the COVID lockdown. Many people are also looking at the fact that we have other increases to pay as well too. So when you look at those things, there is often said, the fellow that broke the camel's back, that sort of. And what we're looking at is additional increments to that burden. We're going to find that we have a sticking point beyond which things are going to be difficult. If we are also asking, which the government is saying, and which is the right thing to say, if we're also asking small and medium businesses and people to diversify into manufacturing, small manufacturing, diversify into export, what do you think this increase in minimum wage is going to do? What do you think increases in electricity, cost of electricity is going to do? Do you think it's going to make the entry point, the barriers to entry, in a sense, in terms of the financial barriers to entry, is it going to be higher or is it going to be lower? It's going to be higher. So is this an environment to encourage diversification on a small scale? Now, you made a very interesting point, which I want to tackle for 2 seconds. You made a point to say the manufacturing sector, it did well, it was boosted, and you're quite correct. In some regard, they have done well. And why have they done well? They've done well because they're exporting outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and they've accessed markets outside of Trinidad and Tobago, markets that can afford the products they're selling, and they're getting their returns or their revenues in US dollars. So they are doing well. What is the manufacturing footprint in Trinidad and Tobago, I ask you? Is it a very large manufacturing footprint? Is it one the same that you find in Mexico or the Far East? And the answer to that is no. How many of those toiletries do they make in Trinidad and Tobago? How many of the clothes that we wear on our back that they make? How many of the things that we buy every day is our manufacturing sector making for us in Trinidad and Tobago? And the answer for that is very little. So all these things still have to be imported into Trinidad and Tobago, and all these things that still have to be sold in these small and medium businesses. When you walk into a mall in Trinidad and Tobago, any mall, how many big brand names do you see? You will see some foreign big brand names. You will see shoes and underwear. You know, you will see some foreign big brand names in Trinidad, which is very good. But the majority of the stores that you see in the malls in Trinidad and Tobago are small and medium businesses or people who are trying to do their own business.
Well, I suppose it depends on which mall you walk through.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the answer to that is still the same. You're not going to find, for example, a Courts in a mall. You're not going to find a super farm directly in the mall. You're not going to find any of larger entities, as it were, in a mall, because these larger entities have their, you know, their own property, their own space, and so on, that sort of thing. But the reality is that when we're looking at what's happening in 2024, what we want to see is growth. I think we all want to see that. What is the answer to the question of so the idea of minimum wage is not that so much that businesses don't want to pay minimum wage. It is timing. It is the timing together with all the other things that we've had. Because over the COVID period, if I may say, certain sectors did well. You know why? Certain sectors that were not locked down made supernormal profits. The sectors that the essential businesses that operated and were the only retail outlets for 2 years while everybody else was shut down made supernormal profits. And when they made their supernormal profits, including the manufacturing sector, what happened is they were able to rapidly expand in 2022 when the economy opened, and 2023, because they had very little debt to take on like anybody else. Mm-hmm. They made money at a time when nobody else was able to make money. And that, in a sense, gives us a false sense of what is happening in the economy. Yeah. Because while we see a great expansion in certain areas, understand that when you look at that expansion is driven by revenues and profits earned during the COVID lockdown. Whereas you're not seeing that level of expansion with anybody else that was deemed an unessential business and was locked down and could not make any money for 2 years. Because all those other businesses could do is take on debt.
Mr.
And
Chairman,
that is one of the reasons.
How is this also going to impact upon business operating hours? Because, you know, businesses having to remain open to try and bring in more consumers and spending money also means that they're going to have increased operational costs. They'll have to pay a higher wage, obviously, because of the minimum wage increase. And when electricity rates come into view, we're speaking about factors to come as well. Increased cost as well, so just generally operating the business. If they want to remain open for longer hours, it's another cost, and you're not guaranteed to have consumers coming into the business to spend money. How do business find a balancing act in this instance?
No, you're quite right. So what happens is, you know, as it is, businesses can open for 40 hours and don't have to pay overtime. Anything over 40 hours would be overtime. Those businesses that some businesses operate Sunday to Sunday, many of the small and medium businesses. Some businesses in the malls and so on, they open longer hours on the weekend. I don't think businesses are actually going to restrict their hours because that could affect them. It could affect their sales and their revenues and so on. So what's going to happen is it depends upon how many workers they have. For example, if you don't have many workers, the minimum wage isn't going to affect you that much, to be honest. If you have a certain number of workers, you can implement, what is usually a shift system, and what many people do, which is you implement a shift system so that you don't have to pay, longer hours. There's a way to adjust the hours and so on to make things more affordable. Because the key thing here is not that businesses are saying, hey, I don't want to pay this money, or you're not deserving of this money, or it really has to do with affordability. Can we afford at this point in time to be paying much more? And the thing is, it's not just us, it's not just small and medium businesses, it's not just retail businesses that have to deal with this. We're looking at supermarkets are going to have to deal with the increase in minimum wage. We're looking at manufacturing is going to have to deal with the increase in minimum wage. One of the favorite catchphrases of many businesses I've been reading is that, oh, well, all our employees are paid higher than minimum wage. And that is also another interesting point, because in cases where, businesses have employees that are paid more than minimum wage, then it's not going to be that much of an issue with them. So the idea is, or the situation is, what businesses will continue to employ large amounts of people at minimum wage? And then we look at manufacturing in a sense, when you're looking at the plant, and people coming in and working very long hours on shifts and so on. We're looking at businesses and warehousing and stuff like that, where people are coming and paying a certain amount. And then we're looking at seasonal businesses where certain times of the year it's busy, and then that many people come in and so on. So it's my hope that this will not affect employment later on. But again, it all depends on how this year unfolds. Are we going to see a certain level of recovery this year? Are we going to see more muted recovery this year? Are we going to see more costs added and more burdens added to businesses this year? I mean, the major hurdle that we're going to have to cross this year is when those electricity rates come out. So the minimum wage is one thing, and then we have other things that we have to deal with as the year goes on. And the reality is, are we going to see our economy recover? Are we going to see government revenues recover? So how can we find ourselves in a better position?
Mr. Chair,
maybe
my final question to you, and I'm so sorry, due to the time factor. Consider this for a moment. According to a central bank report, roughly 16% of the working population will be impacted by an increase in minimum wage, and 16% of the total working population. Now, the majority of that actually falls under community, social, and personal services, such as URP or CPEP programs, for example. Do you think that the government pushed through with property tax, for example, as a way of funding wage increases for people that falls under the URP and CPEP program? Once they knew that local government elections, following that, and they said we're pushing through a local government reform and property tax, we can now increase the minimum wage so that once we retain more finances, we can pass it on to URP and CPEP workers. And that's just one example, by the way.
No, you're quite right. But the other thing that we have to look at is, was it time for enough time, and given that particular incidence of food inflation after COVID, was it time for an increase in minimum wage? And there is a case for that, because we really have to be mindful of where the poverty line is, and we have to be mindful of how much a basket of goods, and we're just talking about a basket of food here, would have increased over the time. And so there is an argument for the fact that there was a lot of pressure from the unions, and there was a lot of outcry from the people, and that the government responded by saying, okay, you know what, at this point in time, we're going to increase the minimum wage. That being said, however, while that was done, the question is, how much has it alleviated the issues? Or how much has it alleviated the cost? Because there's a sense of giving in one hand and taking away with the other. So when we look again at the homeowner's cost, or the someone's cost, how is that going to affect them? So let's say, for example, people who are paid more than minimum. Let's say a young couple, professional couple, young lawyer, young accountant, young doctor, married, take a mortgage for $1 million to $1.5 million, which is the average cost of perhaps a townhouse, paying a mortgage of $7,000 a month, don't have to pay property tax on top of that, don't have to pay high electricity rates on top of that. How much is that couple earning? And how much are their costs going to be before they even hit the grocery? And then what they have after that. So when you look at that, even young professionals who are not being paid minimum wage are quite impacted by where we are in this economy, where prices are for certain things in this economy, and where the cost of living are. And that's quite scary, because in the midst of all that, if we're calling for, if the answer is growth, and if the answer is, if we have more growth across the board, not just with large companies, but small and medium business who absorb a lot of labor and absorb a lot of unskilled labor, then what we want to see is we want to see growth. We want to see small companies become medium and large companies. We want to see medium companies become large companies because then they're going to employ more people. And when you employ more people and you get bigger, you also have a range of salaries that you pay. So there's the idea that people can shift from minimum wage to higher salaries, which is going to help them. We want to see our energy sector continue to grow because salaries within the energy sector at all levels were quite higher than outside of the energy sector. And then there are many people who fed off that energy sector as well to many different, all the communities around them would have also benefited from a vibrant, thriving energy sector, let's say down south and Cuba and so on, and where it was thriving. So when the government says only 16% of people are affected by minimum wage, then let's round it up, right? So let's say that means that what 80% of the people are not on minimum wage. I find that hard to understand because if you look at all young persons that leave school after Form 5 because they don't go on to Form 6, and all young persons that leave school after Form 6 because they don't go on to university or tertiary level, they are coming into the job market to earn a living, which they would have to. They may not have entire skill sets, and they may not have the benefits of higher education or degree. So would that not add them to the pool of people who are earning minimum wage? And where are we finding work for all of these people in an economy where there's not that much growth? So you may look at.
I'll tell you that estimation of 16% or 190,000 workers. That's put forward by the Ministry of Labour. That's put forward by the Central Bank. But the TTCSI has made an argument that it's actually a lot more than that. So conflicting figures, but for the context of the conversation this morning, I'm using the figures presented by central government.
Correct. And then we're not taking into account migrant labor. We're not taking, because if migrant labor is even 20,000 people, because I'm sure it's not 5,000 or 10,000. The estimates that is about 40,000, maybe even, could be something more. If we add that to the mix as well, too, they would also be at a minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, that's a lot more. So I don't believe that the minimum wage pool is that small. I think it's much larger than that, and it's good, and we have to acknowledge that it's much larger than that, because that is the safe thing to do. That is the safe thing to do, to understand that when all these young people are coming into the job market, many of them would not have gone to higher education, not only because they can't afford it, but also because that really wasn't what they wanted to do. So they came out and they're looking for jobs right now, and where are they finding the jobs? And that's particularly important when we look at our crime situation, and we want to make sure that people are not sitting at home, young men are not sitting at home idle, and they want things to do, and they need to make money. And so they become easy fodder for the radicalization.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mr. Chan, we're going to have to end it there. We didn't even get to touch on crime in regards to the increased cost to businesses as well, and security, for example. I know that there's so many factors to get into, but I'm very pleased this morning that you were able to expand the conversation in the manner of which you did, indeed. So thank you very much once more for your time, sir, and for making, for just being generous and sharing this information and knowledge with us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for having me on.
It's always a pleasure. Keep well, Mr. Chan. That's the chairman of the Confederation of Regional Business Chambers, Mr. Vivek Chan, joining me on AM Prime this morning. It's a lot of factors to get into, ladies and gentlemen. I know that you'll understand that. And it's rather frustrating, but these are conversations that need to happen, and these are conversations that we need to have. Because, the impression that you often get is that those in authority, those in position of power, are completely out of touch with the man on the street. you know, with the average man and woman who are on the ground working and toiling. Really, you get that impression. So when we have statements such as the economy is booming and, you know, there's growth by 3% and things are looking up and things are getting better, well, I myself in this position, I'm yet to really experience that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have to live with and this is what we are facing. And we will get through. We always somehow do. But exactly where is the balancing act, or how do we find that balancing act? We're just going to be consumed by more and more challenges. Let's see how we get over them. Anyway, let's take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we get into some other conversations this morning.
Like many others trying to save on Carnival, Gabby thought she should go for 50% off makeup.
What about the other side? Well, Daisy 50% off offer. So you know?
No makeup artist we don't know. What we do know is the savviest savings for Carnival are at KFC. Get a Jab Jab box, 1-piece chicken, 1 regular fries, and a biscuit for only $25.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making the time to be with us this morning as we get into the next conversation. It is actually a concert in which the proceeds will go to assisting the repairs and runnings of 2 homes under the jurisdiction of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. These homes are the Finbar Ryan home, located in Digger Martin, and the Rigsby Pius Charles home, located in Arima. So I'm joined this morning by the president of the Santa Rosa Conference of St. Vincent de Paul, Mr. Rudolph Bonio, and he's with us virtually. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me here this morning.
Well, thank you so very much, sir, for joining us on the program. Please inform us a bit more as per this concert that is taking place. I believe it's next week, Saturday, the 20th.
Yes, well, the concert is on the 20th of January. It starts at 8 p.m. and it's being held at the St. Dominic's Hall, which is located in Digger Martin on the Finbaran Church compound. Lots of parking, lots of space, that sort of thing. And what we're having this event is called Vintage Meets King David Rudder. So what we want to do, we cater for people of a more mature kind of setting, and that so that we have vintage Calypsonians, people like Valentino and Rio and such like persons, and they will be doing one part of the show, and then King David Rudder, he will be doing another part of the show. There may be some other entertainment that we're still working on, but clearly that is what we have. And the tickets are $250 for a ticket. You can get it at the Parish Hall at Finbarayan. You can get it at Santa Rosa Bookshop in Arima. We could call some numbers, 786-7229. You could call 787-463-5059, 723-1587. These are numbers that you can call people. We are actually selling tickets in South too, so if you call 786-7229, we'll be able to put you in touch with the persons in South Trinidad who will make the tickets available.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, you know, so the need is always to raise funds principally, because a lot of what we do is charitable work. We look at those who are less fortunate in the society, and therefore raising funds is a continuing thing with us in terms of looking after the administration, day-to-day running. And then you have repairs, you know, as your own house, you always need repairs. So too with an institution where you're housing, the elderly, most of whom have been homeless, or do have any family relations and that sort of thing. So that is the core group of people, and the society has more than one home where we look after people actually. But this concept we are focusing on two of the homes at this point in time, which is the Fimbaran, which is a home that was established in 1987. It was opened by the late Archbishop Pantin, and for many, many years we have had Ellis Clark, our last Governor General and first President, was a patron of that home, and then when he departed, we had Mr. Noor Hassan Ali also playing a part there. So the home has a rich history of people's participation in assistance in its running. Whereas the home in Arima, we have had that home now since 1953, and in fact it is now named the Rixby Parish Church after one of our stalwart members, a member of the society, someone who has been a member of the society for about 65 years and did a tremendous amount of good work in the Arima community. So the home is named after him. So that those are the two homes that we are working on at this point in time. And we really would like the public support. It's going to be a good show, we believe, so that people will get their money's worth. And it's a safe environment that you are in. And besides the entertainment itself, there will be refreshments on sale.
I think it's incredible that you just mentioned that one of the homes, the Rigby Parish Shaw's home, has been around since 1955. That's incredible. Could you just please inform us, these two particular homes, exactly whom or what do they cater to?
Okay, the Diego Martin home, the Fimbaran, that is an exclusive geriatric home. That is to say that we have people there who need round the clock, as it were, attention, people who are not mobile anymore and that sort of thing. That is the people that we cater to at that home. Whereas the Rixby Parish Child's home in Arima, we have people who are still ambulatory, but as I say, most people have been socially displaced. You have, some of the people too, they may have a relative or two, but they're not able to look after them. There's a concern about leaving them on their own and that sort of thing, so that therefore they need to come in and get community care. So that is basically what these two homes do for the people that we serve. Mm-hmm. You see?
Has the society garnered the support that it is necessary to continue the operations of these homes?
Well, the fact that we have in this event is indicative of the fact that we are always there looking for the support. I would say over the years that we have been pretty lucky in terms of public support. We are always in the community. So people are aware of the homes, but not only are we in the community dealing with the homes, that we also do other things in the community. So the society, I think we have been in Trinidad since 1854. And we are in almost every Catholic parish. So we have a presence. People are aware of us, and based upon that, people do support us. But coming out of COVID, the support hasn't caught up yet to the extent that we would like it to. So that you find, whereas in the past, some of the corporate sponsorship that we enjoyed, we're not having that at this point in time, but we're not having that at the level that we would like to have it. So as I say, we have always been in fundraisers. We normally have an annual, annual raffle, and we do some other things as a society. But essentially, what we're trying to do here now is that we kind of redesigning how we approach fundraising. And as we say, we're doing this event. Then we have a home in San Fernando, also a very large home, a very massive complex at the corner of Root Avenue and Independence Avenue in San Fernando. So you find later down in the year, we may be looking at doing something specific to the needs down there. So that is how we want to approach things now. So in terms of ticket sales and what have you, it's ongoing, but I suspect we are in a competitive environment because Carnival is a short season. But we are hoping, that essentially that what we have to offer is something a little bit unique, and that there's an audience that is willing to lap up this event.
Well, certainly, I know you mentioned that you were targeting more of the mature crowd. Vintage Kaiso meets King David Rudder. But even me looking at the poster and even the title, Vintage Kaiso with David Rudder, I want to attend. And I'm part of the younger generation. So this is really something for the entire family, not just the mature crowd. Hello, Mr. Bonio, are you still with us?
Yeah. Well, yes, I'm still with you. Yeah, yes. Well, essentially, that's who we're pitching for. But I suspect people, younger people, can attend. We're not prejudiced against the youth. They could attend because we had a show last June down at that same hall. Where we had Panis Ray Holman, a couple other people, and we did have, we had a mixed crowd, and that was quite a few of the people who came, the parents and adult children.
Oh, I think we lost Mr. Bonio there. A bit unfortunate. Mr. Bonio, are you back with us? All right, it seems as though we're getting some difficulty to get Mr. Bonio back online. Not so sure if we will be able to get him back in time because we do have to take a break very shortly. But just to give you some more information, ladies and gentlemen, Vintage Kaiso meets King David Rudder. It's being hosted by Cecilia Salazar, and it's a fundraiser in aid of the Finbar Ryan and Rigsby Pius Charles home, located in Diego Martin and Arima, respectively. It's taking place on Saturday, 20th January 2024, from 8 p.m. at the St. Dominic's Hall, next to St. Vinbar's Church in Diego Martin. Tickets cost $250. Refreshments will be on sale, and secured parking is available. For more information on how you can purchase your tickets and support the cause, you can call 463-5059, 786-7229, 791-2362, 495-2000, 2000, 784-2157, or 689-8407, or you can contact the St. Vincent de Paul institution for more information. But like I said, it's for a good cause, ladies and gentlemen, for the continued operations and even the refurbishment of these homes, repairs and running of these two homes, the Finbar Ryan home in Diego Martin and the Rigsby Pius Charles home located in Arima. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime, and when we return, we get into some more conversations.
Here is the WESN News on the hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Cabinet greenlights $205 million debt write-off for cow. UNC election petition for Lingua Indian Walk District dismissed by High Court judge. Northern Fullerton, the founder of the Malik Food Performing Company, has died. Regionally, Guinea seeks assistance from the U.S. to enhance its defense capabilities. Now for the details. The Cabinet has granted the approval for a substantial $205 million debt write-off for the Caribbean Airlines Limited, as confirmed by Carmela Wallace-Shanklin, the financial controller of the Airport Authority. This disclosure was made during the recent meeting of the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, presided over by Devendranath Tanku. The PAC convened to scrutinize the audited financial statements of the Airport Authority from 2013 to 2019 and to assess the progress made in implementing recommendations outlined in the committee's 18th report. Wallace Shanklin clarified that the approved amount of $205 million pertains to accumulated debts owed to the Airport Authority from 2007 to 2019, covering expenses related to Caribbean Airlines hangar, space, and head office rent. The United National Congress faced a setback as its election petition for the Lengua Indian Walk District was dismissed by High Court Judge Marissa Robertson on Wednesday. The petition stemmed from events following the announcement for the People's National Movement candidate Alfie Grant Toomey as the winner over UNC candidate Nicole Gopal on the election night of August 14th. Initially, Grant Toomey secured 1,430 votes compared to Gopal's 1,425 votes. Subsequent recounts for the district revealed both candidates having received 1,428 votes. However, a crucial special ballot in favor for Gopal, which could have broken the tie, was rejected by the presiding officer. This rejection was attributed to the failure of the returning officer to place their initials on the ballot. The High Court's decision brings a resolution to the UNC's election petition for the Lengua Indian Walk District. Norvan Fullerton, the esteemed founder of the Malik Food Performing Company, affectionately known as Fuller, has passed away. A recipient of the National Award and recognized as a cultural icon, in an official statement, the Malik Food Performing Company expressed profound sorrow at the loss of Fuller. The company acknowledged his unparalleled impact, noting that he brought the formidable force of his presence, unwavering conviction, transcending barriers of race, class, and ethos, have played a pivotal role in shaping the artistic and cultural identity of the nation. The company further emphasized that Fuller's enduring legacy serves as an inspiration to countless generations of young individuals globally, highlighting the profound and lasting imprint he leaves on the cultural heritage of Trinidad and Tobago. In regional news, the Guyanese government has revealed its intention to seek assistance from the United States in enhancing its defense capabilities, citing concerns that neighboring Venezuela may potentially attempt to seize a disputed region in the western Guyana, known for its significant mineral and oil resources. This announcement comes in the aftermath of 2 days of discussions between high-ranking Guyanese officials and Daniel P. Erickson, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Western Hemisphere. Erickson, who traveled to Guyana for talks on defense and security partnerships, concluded the discussions late Tuesday by expressing the United States' commitment to aiding Guyana in developing a more organized and well-equipped military in the coming months. However, specific details on the nature of this assistance were not disclosed. Erickson also assured that security forces and specialized training teams, which have engaged with Guyana over the past year, will continue their collaboration in 2024. Well, that's it. To News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sierra Ali. Thank you for watching.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen, and again, thank you for being with us this morning. Now, we get into my last conversation, and this week I've spoken a lot about national security. On Wednesday, I welcomed Keith Scotland, Member of Parliament for Port Experience South, and Chairman of the Joint Select Committee on National Security to the program, following a report which stated that there was increasing levels of public mistrust, a lack of confidence in police. Now, that didn't come too much as a surprise, but there's also that issue of poor customer service on the part of the TTPS. Now, in all fairness, I've had debates and I've had conversations with individuals, but why not hear from the TTPS themselves? So, we welcome to the program an individual who has been kind enough to make themselves available to this platform, which is about 2 hours earlier than usually is on the platform. Good morning, Acting Superintendent Ashraf Ali. Welcome back to WSN, and welcome to AM Prime.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be on Prime 2 hours earlier. Yes, I agree. But those conversations are really difficult conversations that we have to have, but the reality is that our customer service in certain circumstances have been highlighted recently, and it's really poor. So there's no other way to justify it, but it was poor. The most recent situation in the St. Joseph area with the officer and the voice note that was aired on social media and shared a lot across the board was not in keeping with what the police service, customer service policy and practices are, right? First thing first, when you answer a phone, you give your number, rank, and name, right? You be polite to the individual and you ask, how could you assist? There's a lot of things that went wrong there. That is not in keeping the customer service. Up to this time, when you listen to the video, the voice note, you would not have even heard any conversation where the officer actually entertained the report and asked the pertinent questions because the person was in fact making a report. And when you do that, you really and truly just keep on eroding the trust and confidence in the police to actually do our job. Mm-hmm. And that's a difficult challenge we continue to face, because as much as we keep training officers, reinforcing good practices, we still do have officers who really and truly not adhering to it and making some poor judgments when it comes to customer service.
But does that also suggest that there's a need for the TTPS to possibly outsource, well, not necessarily outsource, wrong use of words, but to have a terminal where they receive calls and then issue it to police stations or police officers that are on patrol? Though I'm aware that E99 exists, officers in the police station, should they really be the ones answering the phones and dealing with the public?
And so the issue is not the call and where you receive the call. At the end of the day, you are a police officer, and our job, our primary job, which would be to protect and serve. When you look at service, we have to engage with the public. That level of engagement, there's no way that we can get away from engaging with the public. And that is why customer service is one of our main focus, because no matter how you try to cut it, we still have to engage with the public. We engage with the public in various ways, because we have to always remember that when you're engaging with the public, all publics are not the same. Persons.
No, I understand that. But the argument is because of the lack of confidence or trust or even response. If we take a look at that one example with the female police officer in St. Joseph, the individual who called said 2 hours ago we made a call for a home robbery. Nobody has showed up as yet. And quite often I will let you know that happens, where you call the TTPS and no one shows up. And oftentimes you would make repeat calls and they would say, we have no patrols available.
No.
Now hold on, before we get to that, the point I'm making is there a need, for example, if that police officer, if there was a civilian, for example, in the station taking that call, that said police officer could have showed up to their home?
Fair enough. So that may be a possibility. But at the end of the day, are we saying we are still not addressing the issue of the manner in which police officers continue to engage with the public? So I can take a civilian, right, who is trained in customer service or a customer service professional, and they would have answered that phone and give a proper service, did what we're supposed to do in accordance with customer service rules and regulations. Let's put it this way. That was no issues anymore. But we still have the issue where a police officer would have to engage with the victim. And you still have to have that level of customer service, because at the end of the day, you still have to engage with the public. And that's what I'm saying. We have engagements with the public on different type of publics. So we have persons who come to the station to get direct services. You may have to get a fingerprint taken out, may come to the station and ask a question about some family, or even some situation in the area that they need to get information about. They may not be making a report, but they just need to ask a question. The officers persons who come to the station and ask and have to make a report, those individuals also are in a traumatic situation. We have to understand that they have just gone through a traumatic situation of a crime, or even an RT, which is in some circumstances, an accident is like a traumatic incident to some persons. And they have to go to the station and make that. And then we also have persons who have been arrested, whether or not they believe they committed offense or not, they are still citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and must be treated in a proper manner, right? Because if you fail to do all of that, in the execution of arrest, there's also situations in court that may arise in how you treat these individuals and deprive them of their rights and liberties. So in all these areas, customer service is part of the platform and is part of the forefront.
Now, the TTPS has said, and you on various occasions, other members of the service, the Commissioner of Police have stated that they have invested heavily in training for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and its officers in customer service and dealing with members of the public. It states that clearly. And when you speak to more senior police officers and senior ranking police officers, they say things which make the most sense. They say things that you think would be most practical, as is what you're mentioning this morning. But then the interaction that you face with some of the officers, is it more so some of the younger officers or that are coming into the service or are relatively new into this service that you all are facing these difficulties with?
No. There may be more than one situation that need to be addressed. The officers coming through the academy will be trained in customer service, how to treat with the public. But just putting on a uniform of it, the uniform itself, there's a level of understanding that you have to get into. Because yesterday you was a civilian. When you leave the academy or you join the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, you are a civil member of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. As I say, you're a police. Friends, family, everybody look up to you to behave in a particular manner. You have to now start to understand that what was acceptable for you yesterday and how you socialize in your environment, being a police officer would not be acceptable anymore, because now you are representing an organization that has an image to uphold. And many officers, young, seasoned at the same time, needs to continue have to reassess themselves in whether or not their approaches in certain circumstances is the best image that you're portraying of the police service. We have had a lot of incidents that would have been brought forward, and the question was asked whether or not this is the image of a police officer that we want to put out there. And really and truly, it's a difficult question and a difficult situation to pinpoint and say this was the cause of it. So customer service and our training model may not have been the cause alone. That officer may have been going through some situation and just took that and that was a trigger for her to vent or how she felt. Now we have to be cognizant or be very not cognizant of all the other factors surrounding our current life at this point in time. Right? A lot of pressures. Mm-hmm. That's not an excuse, but it is in fact something we have to consider.
Which you can't ignore it.
Exactly. Yeah. So we do in fact have to understand that. There was another video, I think yesterday I saw it, where officer issued a ticket to a driver and returned the documents. The person was videotaping. via his phone, and somebody else looked like it was videotaping the whole incident, and the officer did in fact hit the person's phone off his hands. The law simply states there's no particular offense or anything that we can probably treat the officer with, but that is not the manner in which you're supposed to deal with it, a situation like that. But at the end of the day, if the person would have, the phone would have hit the ground, may have been damaged, so that person would have been aggrieved, so they have a course of action, could go to the station, make the report, and they can treat it from that perspective in terms of damage to their property. But the mere fact this officer, the officer, how he felt with that phone in his face, his reaction was there. We have also had in our customer service training trying to encourage or guide officers that persons are allowed to use phones to videotape. It's not an offense, but keep your safe distance. Once that person is not obstructing you and executing your function, it is not an offense. So and that is a part of the training that persons need to be occur with. Not everybody like a phone, somebody videotaping them.
Yeah.
Right? The average individual, if you try to tape an average individual with a phone, they may react. So more so a police officer has to be very, very cautious on how you approach situations like that. So there's a lot of circumstances, but I am saying that customer service is not the only issue we have to look at. Our customer service model is not a TTPS model alone. We have brought in experts from other customer service skill sets and professionals to train the police officers in proper customer service.
But then if y'all are investing so much in this, where is it exactly going wrong? I mean, I understand the arguments that you're making in regard to, well, you're not entirely sure what some of these officers are facing because everybody's going through something. And that's a fair point. I understand that. However, it seems as though every corner you turn, not every single police officer is bad, but it tends to be very difficult because the reactions of some of these officers or the interactions with some of these officers are very poor.
And I take that from a public perception and a public point of view. We will take that and address that, and we are addressing that. But do we get?
See, acting ASP, the question I'm really trying to ask is, what more could be done? What more could you all do? If it is you all already saying that you all are investing in these in customer service training,
and I'm saying, how much incidents of poor customer service has been highlighted, as opposed to how many incidents or positive interactions with the police that persons have highlighted. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we do not get any of the positives and the good manner in which your officers speak to you, or proper customer service and the services that you have that persons felt satisfied with what they get. We don't get a lot of persons speaking out about that.
Is it possibly because it's a seldom instance, a very rare thing?
But then I can flip that and say maybe it's a seldom situation that has been highlighted on the negative aspect of it, because that's the one that gets more attention as opposed to the positive. So it's both sides of the coin, but at the end of the day, I am saying customer service is in fact a key element of the police service, because of the fact that we provide services, and anytime you provide services that is not up to standard to the perception of the public, that is where you'll end up with situations. We are currently in a position now where the public doesn't have trust and confidence in the manner in which we deal with them.
You see, the thing is, I don't want to be entirely unfair to the service as well, because just as how I've chastised the TTPS and service I've experienced previously, I've also on this platform highlighted positive interactions before. And there have been many positive interactions, but again, given my experience, for example, it's more so with senior officers. It seems as though interacting with younger officers is quite a difficult thing. It seems as though communication is a difficult thing. So it's not to broad brush or paint the entire service that way, but it's based off of experience.
Well, I think an organization like ours, with a level of experience interacting with the public, you will understand how you continue to do so to build trust and confidence in the organization. Because I'm saying, this is being a police officer at a young age. When I mean a young age, I mean you just come out of the police service, the barracks. First say of one in the first 2 or 3 years, that interaction that you normally will have in a social environment, once anyone knows that you're a police officer, your words, your actions are scrutinized much more.
Immediately.
Right?
Yeah.
And that sometimes persons need to understand, or young officers need to understand, that is, you are no longer on the block, like me with friends, talking to friends, how you're accustomed talking to friends. When you are in the uniform or representing the police service,
that separation between casual and professional,
that has to be a professional conduct.
Yeah.
And we do in fact have situations that we address once so you have senior officers in the station who would have identified certain things and actually bring it to the attention of the officers how you really treat with individuals, right? But holistically, I don't want to say it's as bad as it looks. It is not as good as we would like it to be, right? There's a lot of more improvement with it, but customer service itself is dynamic.
Now, in all fairness to you and the TTPS, you all have acknowledged that it's not where we want to be. You've just stated it. And the Commissioner of Police has stated it. The Minister of National Security has even had his say on it as well. So if we are to be fair to the TTPS, society is becoming increasingly violent. The behavior is falling apart. It's becoming more and more vulgar, more and more obscene. So I accept that. You notice that as well. In many instances, some people who practice such disregard for the TTPS will say they can't touch us, they can't do us anything, they have no power over us, you know. And what authority are there? Is it that sometimes the TTPS gets frustrated because it seems as though the members of the public or the public just don't necessarily want to cooperate or immediately are confrontational?
I would not say the TTPS, because the TTPS is an organization and the structure of the organization has proper standings. Maybe, and in some circumstances, to have certain officers in engagement with the public may feel such a way because persons do in fact, once you see your police officers trying to talk to you or even stop you to get talk, the first thing is a confrontation starts. And there are many persons in the public who just needs to aggravate or agitate an officer because they want a particular type of reaction, notwithstanding that they committed an offense. Right? Because that's their strength, to say that the police officer was disrespectful and the police officer. So, but the fact of the matter is the officer would have stopped you for offense, that you committed something, and what he or she is doing is just simply stopping you to inform you at some point in time of the offense that you have committed. You fully well know that you committed the offense, but you fail to acknowledge, because in your opinion, you feel that you didn't do anything wrong because you're not a criminal. But you're not a criminal, we agree. But failing to wear a seatbelt, breaching of a traffic light, if an officer asks if you're driving documents that you know you're supposed to have your driver's permit on you to drive, with your proper documentation to drive your vehicle, all of those type of situations, you may get stopped, may get checked, but the first thing you do is you pull out your phone to videotape the officer because you have a predisposition that this officer should not have stopped me.
Or you pull out your phone to film when you want to film.
Exactly. And I'm saying that in some circumstances, sometimes the citizens themselves start off on an aggressive tone. And then you may get a stern a very stern warning from the officer, which in your opinion, you may believe that he is too stern and he's not polite anymore.
Well, they will perceive it as a threat.
Exactly, because I can be very stern and professional at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I think acting ASP, one thing that you have to understand is there are multiple factors of which we have acknowledged. Fair enough. And you have also acknowledged that work has to be done. But good luck, because it doesn't help given the crime situation here in Trinidad and Tobago and the increasing criminal element that there is low confidence or mistrust in the service to the extent that citizens may just no longer want to cooperate in any form or any way at all. So, by all means, in many instances, officers are making the jobs more difficult for themselves.
But do you know that it's ironic with those type of situations that we have large events taking place when we have Independence, we have Carnival, and all major fetes. Persons who go there to enjoy themselves, if an officer tell them, sir, you can't go in this line, you have to go in this line. Yes, sir, I'll go in this line because you know why? Their objective is to go inside the party and to enjoy themselves. The circumstance itself and the environment in which the confrontation is taking place sometimes dictates how it ends. Right? There is customer service all across the board. Customer service for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service may not be similar to that of customer service of somebody in a bank. Right? Because if you come to a station and you are traumatized of an event, we cannot ask you, or incident, you are not asked to go and wait in a line and I will treat with you because you have just been robbed. You are traumatized. You want to make your... So we have to work with the environment that we have, because in a banking system, if you have to go to see teller and there's a long line, you have to wait. Mm-hmm. No one will question how long I have to wait. If you choose not to wait, you leave the bank and come back another day. But it's different with that of the police service. You can't go on, you can't say, well, okay, I will come back tomorrow to make a report. I'll come 2 days afterwards to make the report because the station, the officers can't take the report now. So we have to adjust at the same time, and the public has to understand that. So in our customer service, it may be a bit different. But the principles behind customer service remains the same. Being professional, being courteous to your customers, and professionalism is the key in the whole thing. We use the word professionalism a little too loosely in the context, because a lot of persons don't really understand what being a professional is about in the organization and how you conduct yourself. Right? So there is in fact a lot of work to be done, and it is being done. Look at today. Today we have recruiting, right? And if you go down to the academy to this morning, you will realize the number of persons who are putting up their hand to be members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. If the organization was such of an organization that the public doesn't have trust and confidence in, it is so high and we are so bad, and on a negative light. Question is, why do we have a number of young men and women putting up their hand to become members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service?
Job security.
And I agree. But those individuals who are coming there have to understand the responsibility that they are taking up.
Let's hope they do.
And that is one of the big things. That is a big thing.
Because
they are putting up their hand for service of country.
Let's hope they truly understand.
And I wish them all the luck.
Well, we all do.
Exactly.
We all do. Acting ASP, thank you very much for making the time to join me on AM Prime this morning. Thank you so much.
It has been a pleasure.
Certainly. Looking forward to more conversations, and because you've got one of the other busy periods coming up.
Yes, I do.
Well, in the midst of the busy period. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you so very much for joining me this morning. Wishing you a great day ahead. May it be a productive one, a safe one. And in all that you do, always remember, you can make the difference, and you can make a positive difference. We can all make Trinidad and Tobago just a little bit sweeter, if we wanted to, if we tried. Have a great one, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
WESN.
I'm Sean Michael Small, and we are WESN, the Content Capital.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on WhatsApp Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
WhatsApp Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight. Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content.
WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Houthis are a rebel group in Yemen that have held that country's capital since 2014. Since 2015, they've been battling a Saudi-led coalition there that supports the exiled government of Yemen. Now, the Houthis have received both support and weaponry from Iran as that war has gone on.
With an arsenal of ballistic and cruise missiles and long-range drones, the Shia rebel group now controls much of the populous north of Yemen. Launching hundreds of rockets against Riyadh, it has become one of the most active members in what Iran calls its axis of resistance against Saudi Arabia, the US, Israel, and their allies. Within Yemen, though, they've become unpopular. After nearly 9 years of civil war, over 370,000 deaths, and a catastrophic humanitarian crisis. But the Houthis' show of military might and what they say is for the Palestinian cause, its drone support and transcended local divides. It's also put the group on the international stage as a force to be reckoned with.
Well, this Friday, the first cabinet meeting took place of the French government. Emmanuel Macron replaced his foreign minister, but other key posts went unchanged. All the top ministries are in the hands of men. We can cross to the Élysée Palace, speak to our reporter, Clovis Casale. Hello to you, Clovis. We understand the meeting just wrapping up. What more can you tell us?
Indeed, the cabinet meeting are now over, and ministers leaving did not say a word to journalists, but we got to talk to the entourage of the French President Emmanuel Macron, some of his prime advisors, who told us that the idea with this government reshuffle is to have a smaller cabinet, less ministers, 15 ministers, and that is to be able to act more quickly, more swiftly, and be more efficient. That's the official message that the French president wants to send out. I asked one of these advisors, why change the foreign minister, Catherine Colonna, replace her with Stéphane Séjourné? Well, the reply was very clear. The direction is the same for France, but Stéphane Séjourné is also a man that Emmanuel Macron knows extremely well, one of his closest allies, a politician who's been by the side of the French president ever since Emmanuel Macron began in politics. He was the head of the Renew group in the European Parliament, and that's also a symbol that the Élysée wants to stress, that European affairs matter to the French president, especially with the EU elections coming up only in a few months.
Yeah, Clovis, so a cabinet that is smaller in hopes of being more reactive, but observers are also saying this new cabinet is more conservative, aren't they?
When you look at the names in this cabinet, well, the key ministers are staying put. Bruno Le Maire for the economy, Gérald Darmanin for the interior ministry. Well, those two figures are right-wing politicians. And then you've got the new culture minister, Rachida Dati, who was the justice minister under President Nicolas Sarkozy. She also comes from the right wing. Catherine Vautrin, the new Labour minister, same situation. So is this government more right-wing? Well, a lot of people are definitely saying that, especially the left-wing opposition, saying that Emmanuel Macron can no longer pretend that he is a centrist president. Remember, Emmanuel Macron has always said that he doesn't believe in the right. He doesn't believe in the left. He wants a government bringing together politicians from all sides. Well, when you look at the situation now, it does seem that there are several right-wing heavyweights in power, even though the new Prime Minister, France's youngest Prime Minister, 34-year-old Gabriel Attal, was once a socialist.
All right, Clovis, thank you very much. Clovis Casale reporting from the Élysée Palace. Last day of campaigning in Taiwan. On Saturday, the self-governing island is holding a presidential election. Domestically, one of the biggest issues, especially for young voters, is the economy. But abroad, the poll is often being seen through the prism of a battle for influence in the region between China and the United States. Beijing claims Taiwan as a breakaway province and has vowed to retake it one day by force if necessary. Yan Kemenzin Brumbi reports from Taipei.
The rhetoric is surprisingly aggressive. If you attend some of these presidential rallies, a lot of time is spent shouting abuse or accusing the opposition parties of corruption, of being willing to undermine peace in the region. And all of the parties here actually claim that they are pro-maintaining a peaceful status quo. But they all also accuse the other parties of being willing to undermine that peaceful status quo. The KMT, the Kuomintang, the party that descends from the Chinese nationalists that lost the civil war in 1949 to the communists in China, they have historically been much closer to China. They see themselves as being Chinese, as being part of a broader Chinese identity. And they want to improve relations with Beijing by increasing economic and political exchange across the Taiwan Strait. But they're accused by their political opponents of being willing to sell out Taiwanese sovereignty and of being pro-CCP. The Democratic Progressive Party, the party of government here, the DPP, well, they have historically been much less close with China, but the opponents of them, their opponents, they accuse them of being to blame for the relations, for the bad relations that we've seen with Beijing, that some here have been characterizing as being at an all-time low.
That's the news for now. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned to France 24.
Deep in the countryside, a new revolution is underway. A big change that's coming from the cities and gradually invading the fields. And this revolution is digital. This young farmer isn't playing on his smartphone. He's fine-tuning the feeding process for his cattle.
In the kitchen, there's alfalfa and straw. This is corn silage and grass silage. The robot knows where each animal is, so it will give the correct ration to a dairy cow and a different ration to a heifer.
24/7, 365 days a year, robots serve Antoine Maurice's cows.
Here, my cows are free to eat when they want, and when they need milking, they go to the automatic robot by themselves. That gives the animals a really high level of well-being.
It was being able to turn the family farm into a dairy business version 2.0 that convinced Antoine to take over the reins.
I couldn't see myself at 50 years old, like my parents, uncles and aunts, not being able to milk anymore because the work was too hard. These days, quality of life is crucial for a farmer.
But having all the mod cons comes at a cost. The Maurice family spent 100,000 euros on the milking robot alone. The cost of change and fear of the unknown. That's what's still holding up the introduction of new technologies into farming. To the north of Chartres, Luc Laurent seems like any other traditional farmer. He grows 320 hectares of grain, but most of his work is now done on a computer. He gathers huge amounts of data, which has a direct impact on his crops.
I have a passion for my job, a passion for mathematics, a passion for agronomy and the physiology of plants. I was born with a pair of boots and a computer, and my aim now is to predict.
Considered an oddball in France, Luc had to export his ideas elsewhere.
I wasn't able to do this in France. I tried to do it for 20 years and wasn't able to, and after 3 years in Romania, it was job done. These satellite images help farmers a lot with their decision-making. In Romania, we're involved with 7 or 8 farms of between 2,000 and 15,000 hectares.
Not everyone is forced to go to the other side of Europe. They have customers at the end of the path.
Hi, Florian. I brought you the camera. We'll set it up here because it's dry.
Himself a farmer, Xavier Chaban has invented a connected camera to monitor watering systems.
Okay, it's online and running. Check it out. Perfect. Go on, try to move it.
A godsend for his young customer who no longer needs to drive around everywhere to make sure everything's working.
It stops me going backwards and forwards. I have 2 sites, including one where I need to be present to wind and unwind the hoses. So this gives me a lot of autonomy. Digital tools make things a lot easier. These days, a single farmer has to manage a much greater surface with a lot more to do. I'm not sure if it's easier, but digital does help to reduce the workload.
Farming is changing, and so too is the market. And some see this as an opportunity.
They've grown a lot.
They have indeed.
Alban and Arthur are visiting one of their customers, a watermelon grower.
They're superb. They're flowering and everything. But these have a few aphids on them.
4 years ago, these 2 start-uppers, both farmers' sons, created a 100% digital organic fruit and vegetable market that unites small-scale growers and distributors.
A farmer is first and foremost a craftsman. Today, we're using digital to bring new solutions and new ways of working. And the aim, of course, is to make sure we all make a living out of it.
They developed their idea here in Châteaudun, in the startup incubator dedicated to the farming of tomorrow.
Titi, some good news for you. I have your cucumbers. Your cucumbers, 4x5, reserved until August.
The aim of their online platform is to facilitate organic produce transactions at fair prices.
The idea is to have in real time all the information about a given product, the amount of available stock and the starting price. Because we work with starting price plus transport cost to have more transparency on the true cost of the product and how much it costs for us to deliver it directly to the customer the following day.
Digital tools that save time and gain productivity, while making everyday work a little easier. That's the promise these farmers, version 2.0, have bought into. They want to believe in a future where happiness is still found in the fields.
Ever since the arrival of Pope Francis, an air of excitement has reigned at the Vatican. But in recent weeks, a feeling of anxiousness has been growing.
Je sens que se joue depuis quelques mois une bataille autour de la succession de François.
On one side, the reformists, supporters of the reigning pontiff.
La misión de la Iglesia es para todos y nuestra postura, que parte del Evangelio, es abrirnos a todos.
On the other, the conservatives, who are very powerful within the Curia.
La crisi della Chiesa è entrata in una nuova fase, la crisi del Magistero.
No one knows which way the Catholic doctrine will turn.
We have suffered about the confusion going on in the Church at this moment.
Watch Reporters, the Vatican, the power struggle at the head of the Church, on France 24 and France24.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me.
Hi.
May I ask you? Hi, my name is Pascal.
Hi, Pascal.
What's your relationship with fashion?
I have I think a healthy relationship with fashion. I appreciate it, I have respect for it, I enjoy it, and I also have fun with it.
It's an art.
Yes, for sure it's an art, yes, 100%, yeah. Thank you.
Fashion is, of course, about artistry, but does it deserve to be elevated to the status of art in its own right? If next winter's exquisite ready-to-wear collections presented in Paris are anything to go by, the answer is a resounding yes. Although these fans outside the Dior show have turned out for an altogether different reason. They're here to spot their favourite influences.
When you get dressed in the morning, it can be like putting on an armor, a shield. You can wear something that functions as an extension of your personality, and sometimes it's easier to wear something than to say something, if you want to get a message across. And clothes are so much more than just clothes, especially at Dior. Absolutely, it's important to me. I've attended Fashion Week and Women's Fashion Weeks for the past 3 years. I think it's really important because most often we found ourselves among fellow women. It lets us celebrate fashion and women.
The show's backdrop was the work of Joana Vasconcelos. In the early 2000s, the Portuguese artist became known for The Fiancé, a vast sculpture made from 25,000 tampons. For Dior, she opted for a more couture-friendly approach, picking up her knitting needles.
This piece is inspired by the Valkyries, the Norwegian goddesses who save brave warriors on the battlefield. For me, it's the idea of the meeting of two worlds. The fact that fashion and contemporary art can work well together. That we can all share the things we create to make a more beautiful and peaceful world.
The idea started from to think about 50, but we don't realize, especially was really for me a surprise how much I have this idea of 50 that is close with American film, but it's completely different the situation in Europe and especially in Paris, but also in Italy, because it was after the Second War. And we are not to forget that in Paris, in 40, the women had the vote and also the second sex. So I think that Mr. Dior in Paris was more in contact with women like Catherine Dior, of course his sister, but also like Edith Piaf, like Juliette Gréco, that was also a client of Dior with a very strong personality, very resilient, and I want to use their art to really explore the personality, but also to be independent women.
This interpretation of feminism is very hopeful, but it's also about commercial success.
What we can see if we look at LVMH's latest results is that it worked extremely well. Generally speaking, with each collection, there's always some little message, sometimes only subliminal, around the same theme. She is extraordinary. She knows how to conjure an atmosphere while always still focusing on the details of what she produces. She's wonderful.
Fashion is so often about the intersection between a story and a product. For Stella McCartney, that impulse gave way to a daring show that kicked off with a beautiful procession of horses, led by a horse whisperer. It was a nod to a childhood spent riding and her love of all things nature.
The idea was to put people on each side. That was the first proposed configuration, with a corridor down the middle for the horses and the models to walk down. But it was too narrow, so I suggested putting the seats on just one side, and it worked out.
He kept telling me I was crazy. Well, the main message here is we can live in harmony with our fellow creatures. We can have wonderful fashion, beautifully made, timeless in design, without killing animals, you know, and celebrate our relationship of living in harmony with our fellow creatures. So we had Jean-Francois, the French horse whisperer, and his beautiful wild horses, and the relationship between them and the models kept saying, oh, their energy they got off the horses, you know, it was like a healing energy. And then the patterns that came into the knitwear that you see from the blankets of the horses, my mother's photography, my sister's photography of horses, because we've been riding forever as a McCartney family. And, you know, yeah, trying to celebrate fashion, but also celebrate sustainability too.
She's powerful. She's certainly a pioneer. She's doing things that have never been done before in fashion, and I just love that. I love her for that. And she's a cool, like, girl's girl.
Stella McCartney's commitment to vegan fashion is well documented, employing everything from mushroom fibers to recycled food waste in her quest for fashion that's not only beautiful, but responsible too.
For 40 years, Chiang Kai-shek imposed the White Terror on the island of Taiwan. In 2016, the government promised to reveal the truth, but this obligation to remember looks set to be difficult.
C'est à l'État de présenter leurs excuses auprès des victimes.
Watch Taiwan Revisited, The White Terror, on France 24 and France24.com.
Costas, and I report from Geneva for France 24 News on major developments from UN peace talks, global health and emergencies, and Swiss politics and finance.
John Zaracostas, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Cabinet greenlights $205 million debt write-off for cow. UNC election petition for Lingua Indian Walk District dismissed by High Court judge. Norvan Fullerton, the founder of the Malik Food Performing Company, has died. Regionally, Guinea seeks assistance from the U.S. to enhance its defense capabilities. Now for the details. The Cabinet has granted the approval for a substantial $205 million debt write-off for the Caribbean Airlines Limited, as confirmed by Carmela Wallace-Shanklin, the financial controller of the Airport Authority. This disclosure was made during the recent meeting of the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, presided over by Devendranath Tanku. The PAC convened to scrutinize the audited financial statements of the Airport Authority from 2013 to 2019 and to assess the progress made in implementing recommendations outlined in the committee's 18th report. Wallace-Shanklin clarified that the approved amount of $205 million pertains to accumulated debt owed to the Airport Authority from 2007 to 2019, covering expenses related to Caribbean Airlines hangar, space, and head office rent. The United National Congress faced a setback as its election petition for the Lingua Indian Walk District was dismissed by High Court Judge Marissa Robertson on Wednesday. The petition stemmed from events following the announcement for the People's National Movement candidate Alfie Grantumi as the winner over UNC candidate Nicole Gopal on the election night of August 14th. Initially, Grantumi secured 1,430 votes compared to Gopal's 1,425 votes. Subsequent recounts for the district revealed both candidates having received 1,428 votes. However, a crucial special ballot in favor for Gopal, which could have broken the tie, was rejected by the presiding officer. This rejection was attributed to the failure of the returning officer to place their initials on the ballot. The High Court's decision brings a resolution to the UNC's election petition for the Lingua Indian Walk District. Norvan Fullerton, the esteemed founder of the Malik Food Performing Company, affectionately known as Fuller, has passed away. A recipient of the National Award and recognized as a cultural icon, in an official statement, the Malik Food Performing Company expressed profound sorrow at the loss of Fuller. The company acknowledged his unparalleled impact, noting that he brought the formidable force of his presence, unwavering conviction, transcending barriers of race, class, and ethos, have played a pivotal role in shaping the artistic and cultural identity of the nation. The company further emphasized that Fuller's enduring legacy serves as an inspiration to countless generations of young individuals globally, highlighting the profound and lasting imprint he leaves on the cultural heritage of Trinidad and Tobago. In regional news, the Guyanese government has revealed its intention to seek assistance from the United States in enhancing its defense capabilities, citing concerns that neighboring Venezuela may potentially attempt to seize a disputed region in the western Guyana, known for its significant mineral and oil resources. This announcement comes in the aftermath of 2 days of discussions between high-ranking Guyanese officials and Daniel P. Erickson, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Western Hemisphere. Erickson, who traveled to Guyana for talks on defense and security partnerships, concluded the discussions late Tuesday by expressing the United States' commitment to aiding Guyana in developing a more organized and well-equipped military in the coming months. However, specific details on the nature of this assistance were not disclosed. Erickson also assured that security forces and specialized training teams, which have engaged with Guyana over the past year, will continue their collaboration in 2024. Well, that's it. News on the Hour on WESN. I am Sarah Ali. Thank you for watching.
WESN.
of my valued viewers and all of our valued viewers of WSND Content Capital. This is Talking Point here, once again to have the important discussions of the day. And later on in the program, we'll be touching on something that happened, you know, in the past, but I think it brings up a very important societal question, a question that could be related to potentially our culture, of course related to the current epidemic of violence, I guess, is one way to put it. Not necessarily the most accurate way, depending on who you speak to. But before we get into that, though, of course, first off, I'd like to once again mention that COVID-19 has made some international headlines again. There's still some minor concerns, and I would always caution people who are traveling. It seems as though right now, because of the general exposure around the world, COVID-19 is not necessarily more dangerous than the flu. However, it's not necessarily as safe as the flu. And there's still people at risk. So again, once again, just those who are traveling, airports especially, as well as depending if you're in a hospital setting. Of course, flu vaccination rates are also apparently quite low, not just COVID-19 vaccination rates. And there's always been, and there has always been, a concern about flu immunity and the effect it does have on the population. Just before COVID-19, that and all was a question here in TNT. However, let's not alarm anybody. It's not as though, yes, there's a new variant, but it's not doom and gloom. The world is still moving on. And of course, there is more to speak about locally. So for that, we'll start off this morning's Daily Review. And of course, again, I'll start off the morning with safety concerns during carnivals. But now there is a flip side, a different argument, and that is the president of the Promoters Association, Jerome Priscilla. He, a local entertainer, media personality, as well as the second term as being the president of the FET Promoters Association. He is saying, well, hold on, there is not necessarily any indicators that carnival would be a bloody affair, we would see an uptick of violence in carnival. And to some extent, he is correct. Even with, of course, the second highest murder rate, I believe, last year, and the highest murder rate the year before, it's not as though carnival became, you know, a free-for-all, a Wild West with violence occurring at every door. However, I would like to remind people, I believe, was it last year? Yes, last year, January, Mr. Priscilla, he was there speaking about, well, the word extortion was used with regards to the money that was required to give the police in order to have a police presence at FETs. And now it seems as though that's no longer a question. To be fair, to his credit, you know, it seems as though he, like other stakeholders, are looking to put things in place. But I think I could appreciate Mr. Priscilla's situation. There's a fine line. You don't want to be incendiary. You don't want to show that you're not confident in what you're doing, because then that might create a misconception of how bad things are, and that's not necessarily helpful, right? Just like covering up the truth and trying to make things look better than they are is not helpful. Allowing things to be perceived to be worse than they are is also not necessarily helpful. So he is straddling a very fine line there of trying to appear confident and, of course, working towards measures to be confident in, as well as trying to be realistic. And I myself said it before, Carnival, we have seen success with the police presence, but I have concerns that as we hear the same old rhetoric and the doubling down, will it still be effective? Because the murder that happened in the Queen's Park Savannah, so the other workers basically, they said they're not going to go back out to work to put up boots there, and that lasted for 4 days until armed security was stationed more or less around that area. However, I have a lot of questions now, and it's something that's been bothering me for quite some time. What does it mean to be a private security guard in TNT now? And we haven't necessarily seen too many private security guards having to get into violent confrontations with criminals, the penny-wise robbery notwithstanding. But looking at the two security guards, at least one photo in a daily newspaper, they're armed with pistols. It's two of them. Meanwhile, it was 4 murderers armed with rifles that had a specific target, it seems, or it appears to be the case, and they more or less ambushed in a blink of an eye. To what extent now will measures like these, and it's not that the measures are unreasonable, and that's the thing, will enough reasonable measures be able to be put in place, as well as will it even be enough depending on what type of criminal activity is going on? Because, and there's two examples in the papers that makes me concerned over the vulnerability of Carnival. One is the fact that there's a report today in one of the daily newspapers that a fish vendor was basically, he was reported fleeing TNT to the UK because he was potentially a victim of extortion by gangs. And we have seen other situations, contractors becoming victims, in one case ending up being murdered, not wanting to give in to extortion claims. And we've also seen yesterday it went viral, and we don't necessarily know the reason why in this case, but the owner of a gym franchise, because there's more than one location, at Long Circular Mall, he was attacked. I saw the videos myself. It was a very strange situation because a car seemed to just parked nearby, and it looked as though it was leaving, and then a passenger, I believe, on the passenger side jumped out, fired shots, this time with a pistol, and then left. The victim looked as though he survived. He is reported to be in stable condition at the hospital, but he had some gruesome injuries to his face. Now, again, I do wonder, is this a situation where a business owner might be unwittingly, it's not because he is involved in something bad, but perhaps a criminal element is trying to involve him or extort him. There was also the bar owner who was killed. Now, we don't necessarily know, right? We don't know, but the more we have situations where business owners are being victims of violence or feel threatened enough to leave, we do have to ask now, at what point in time will the extortion racket, it's not a crime that necessarily gets a lot of press in TNT, but it does exist, and will it now move if contractors could be extorted? And it seems to be small scale contractors. Well, what about small scale and medium scale businesses or ventures with regards to TNT Carnival? And then how far will it go? I don't know. It's just something that I was looking at, and it's one of the things that I'm concerned about, because at the end of the day, maybe that's why the Socodrome was created, so that you could avoid certain parts of town in Port of Spain. And one thing that came up with the crime consultations is that not all of the relevant stakeholders arguably were present. So while you had the NCC, the FEC promoters, and I believe you had the mayor of Port of Spain, you didn't necessarily have the mayor of Arima. He said he didn't get an invite. San Fernando City Corporation, their mayor had their own anti-crime talks, but was not included with what potentially is a national level, or what you would think would have been the national level talks that went past this Monday. I think also Cuva, Chaguanas, and they have their concerns as well. We might not, we might underestimate the carnival festivities outside of Port of Spain and San Fernando, but they have Juve bands, they have their own thing going on, and of course, that leaves room for things like criminal activity, extortion, etc. So, we'll just have to see how this unfolds, and I hope that we are not going to get into a situation where we regret. But again, it goes back to the question, how much more can be done by a police service that is racked with, one, shortages, and two, other controversial issues? And what am I speaking of? Well, not so much of a controversy, but the next story. And this one actually, I might think of as something of a positive. The Commissioner of Police apparently has decided to change the rules or regulations for active service members to renew their firearm users licenses, right? And apparently, previously, they were exempt from renewals. And I can understand the reason for the exemption, because when you think about it, part of their job is to operate firearms. They are given firearms as an agent of the state, right? So you would expect them to be responsible. So it might seem somewhat redundant requiring to have a certificate of competence, a certificate of character, and a medical certificate for renewal, because those things I would imagine would be required for them to be a police officer. However, apparently a new order was given, and it is not necessarily clear, but it was made after we have the situation with the member of the Defense Force who is being charged for murder of his ex-wife and his ex-wife's mother, and that was a pretty distressing or upsetting murder in recent times. And it seems as though that timing-wise, this change happened after. And now we do have to ask, to some extent, is this the solution? Because yes, a private firearm is different to basically your service weapon. When you're on duty and you're in uniform, to some extent, you're being further monitored, more strictly monitored, and you can't necessarily commit crimes of passion. Like, there's less of an opportunity in theory, right? Depending on how it goes. And when you're off duty, you're off on your own, you're not necessarily monitored, you're not necessarily having to answer to anybody because it's your own time. And what you could do with a private weapon, you know, to some extent is going to be different. And the situations you're in, because you're not on the job, you're out on your own. So I get it. But then it goes back to the question of, well, hold on, if we have issues trusting service members with private firearms, and they're technically in jobs where they're supposed to have good character, good judgment, in order to have those jobs, like being a police officer or a member of the Defense Force or a prison service officer, etc., etc. You know, if we have to say, maybe we should have you go through the process for your private license, to some extent, isn't that just a redundant set of tests? That said, at least it's a proactive decision as opposed to something passive. So that's why I said I kind of see this as a positive. There might be some things that slip through the cracks. So having a redundant set of tests, I mean, that's what it appears on the surface, but having it might potentially allow to catch some things. I just don't know if the various unions and associations will appreciate the fact that, so you're telling me that I can have a weapon on the job and I'm qualified for that, but you disqualify me for having a private weapon. And then will that disqualification now impact my service record and my capacity to get promotions or even to continue on the job? Therein lies the question I think the associations will have coming up. Because, let's move on to the next story. Oh, and sorry, and this is, of course, yes, there was a case of a soldier being allegedly committing a double murder, but a prison officer just got shot. So that's the flip side to this now. I don't know if service members will also like being told that, hey, defending yourself on your free time might become a little bit harder or more restricted. But, as I said, in the next story, I don't know if having these two sets of tests, because you have to be tested to become a member of a protective service, and you should, I believe, you should have competency ratings or evaluations on how to even use the weapon on a somewhat of a regular basis. I think it's at least annual in a lot of cases. Right? Now, one of the things that the TTPS, one of their problems is they've had promotion controversies, and they're not the only one. You get it in the Defense Force. We had it with regards to some high-ranking members of the Defense Force. But of course, with the TTPS, we had a situation with corporals getting promoted, or getting promoted to corporal. Something like 900 officers getting promoted at a single grade, which it seemed as though a mistake was made, and trying to sort that out. Now there's another controversy with, police officers looking to take the commissioner to court. These police officers are basically saying, listen, some of our evaluation scores are higher than people who were promoted ahead of us. And in some cases, some of these officers, they didn't just score below us, but some of them were on suspension or even charged for murder. I don't know if it was any of the 6 or 7 officers involved in the Moruga triple homicide or whichever other cases. Of course, there's the whole falling off of a chair from a few years ago where the officers are sought at that time, etc., etc. And it just now begs the questions again. So as much as I said, okay, at least the commissioner is making an active decision with regards to FULs. And there's also other decisions with regards to FUL renewals, which has some legal questions. To some extent, an argument can be made, she is not supposed to be making those decisions, but at least we're seeing something. It might be technically bad decisions, but we're seeing something, and I could see the intent behind it. But now, I do have to ask, with so many controversies of how we promote our protective service members, and I do wonder, does anyone else have any questions at the health of these various state agencies who technically have the monopoly collectively on violence, right? That's the conundrum of modern society. The state has the monopoly on violence, of course, with certain regulations and oversights. We as private citizens are not free to just utilize violence whenever the mood suits us. And even if we're defending ourselves, we still have to be careful. The state more or less controls that whole scenario, that whole formula, right? But when things like management of these various services are not coming into question, and we already have situations with the rest of the public service where we wonder, is it a meritocracy or is it a situation of seniority and office politics? And is it like that with the police service? Because one could argue that's how people with lower scores get in. Now, the flip side is when you have a job like being a police officer, or you see it in sports. When in sports they say the eye test. Anybody who, this football player, he passes the eye test. He might not run as fast as the other guy. He might not be as tall or strong as the other guy, right? But when he's on the field, he's doing a better job. And to what extent do we build in some allowance for that? But I don't know if we really have that done. That's why potentially you have a panel to look over, to do assessments, and to some extent even the notes of supervising officers should potentially include things like that, how a candidate exercises his judgment with regards to various high-stress scenarios, etc., etc. Basically, if one of the officers who's saying, why did I get passed up for promotion, if one of those officers is the one that slapped the phone out of the guy's hand, hey, apparently, if you're from St. Joseph Police Station, that might be, the poster child right now of poor supervision or regulatory, oversight of its officers. I don't care how much that officer scored, how highly he scored. I have no issue if he will not get a promotion, if he was denied a promotion. So that's the thing. When we hear stories like this, right, and it's not as though we necessarily get all of the context, we are left to speculate on our own. Where is the confidence how the police service is able to handle just its basic human resource management situation? In the private sector, if you mess up and promote the wrong people, your performance suffers and you make less money, and that is what causes people to get fired, axed, kicked out the door. But in public service, it's harder. And my issue as well, with regards to something like the police service, this is a little bit more than just, we didn't make as much money as we're supposed to, we're wasting money. This is, again, something that directly impacts